Hey guys, we are here. We are recording and filming episode 4 of Real Time with Rachael today, and I have a very fun guest for us today. She's my friend Deborah Friend Wilson. She's my friend twice, Deborah Friend Wilson. And we're going to talk today about some of, we're going to talk a little bit about the community, which we love. And we are going to talk to Deborah today about her consulting firm, Balanced Plate Consulting, which has a whole bunch of cool things that they do. She's going to tell us all about them. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the lake house, which she plays a big hand in. I think that would be a gentle way of saying that you run the show, except for your husband, Chef Jason Wilson, who is the main dude, right?
He's the main dude.
He's the main dude. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. We had the pleasure of meeting when you so kindly set up a beautiful lunch for me and my comrades, who were, of course, my filming crew, and got to really introduce us to a little bit more about the menu at the lake house. And then you and I got to talking. We have a bunch of mutual friends, and we were surprised we didn't know each other already just from living around here, and our kids are the same age, but we didn't know each other. But since then, we have enjoyed getting to know each other, and you had mentioned to me about your amazing work that you do for the hospitality sector, and we just thought it would be really fun to talk about it, especially right now with the holidays coming up. I think it would be really nice for people to know about some of the services that are available out there. You and I talked the other day, and we talked about how most of our first jobs were working in a restaurant. So I'm going to have you expand about that. So,
yeah.
Okay, that's the intro, everyone. And now I'm going to introduce Deborah. She's going to tell us a little bit more what it is that you do and why it's so important that you and I are having this conversation today.
Oh, thank you so much. It is such a treat, first of all, to have met you several months ago now. Your energy and just your whole vibe, I can see why you are so loved and listened to, and people just love to be around you because you're such a light.
Aww,
and
thank
you're so
you. Checks
real
in the
and
mail.
honest.
Thank you so much.
It's true, but it's just refreshing, though. I don't know if it's the older I get or whatever it is, but it's like you just have this authenticity to you that is so pleasurable to be around. So
thank you. And I think good people attract good people.
There you go.
And so I think as we are getting older, where you and I are probably about the same age, it's like, I'm picky about who I hang with. But once I find somebody that I'm really enjoy their energy, just like you just said about me, I felt the same about you. It's just like, now I'm texting you, hey, I'm coming in. Are you going to be there? Like, I want to see you. Like,
exactly. Well,
you're my gal pal.
Right. Like, time is so precious, right? So
Yeah.
we get to be more particular now with how we spend it. And that's such a relief to finally realize at a certain time in your life. So
absolutely. And I think women kind of like supporting other women is just like something that's become so important to me over the last couple of years, especially because I know you were a single mom until you got married again to Jason. And, same for me for the last 6 years, and maybe it's 7 now. Wow. Either way, it's a long time, but we kind of reinvented ourselves, both of us, and we got to promote each other, right?
We do. We promote each other, right? I know. Yeah. I mean, men, women, all genders, all ages or whatever. It's really about that connection and that mutual support and a little bit less fear and a little more honesty. So yes. I very much appreciate you having me on, and you're right. This is what we'll talk about today, that you're so gracious to invite me to talk about is the service industry. And so many people are taking part in, retail and restaurants and all of these things because it's the holiday season. And so many people are working in that environment now, even people temporarily working to make extra money during this busy time or whatever. And so there's just a lot of attention around how we exchange goods and services together and how those systems work or don't work.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how you started getting interested in this, and then we can kind of go from there.
So I went back. So my first career is in marketing and public relations. I used to own a PR agency here in Seattle, like many, many, many years ago, and took a hiatus from the corporate world to raise my children and do my own, soul searching and enter a different chapter in my life. And I decided to go back to school to pursue what my original interest was career-wise, which was psychology and mental health counseling. So a few years ago, I went back to Seattle University to pursue a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And it was a fascinating time because the pandemic started right around the time that I started getting that degree. So all of a sudden, instead of like hoofing it around campus, I was sitting on my computer like you and I are now,
right.
Taking classes in Zoom and just watching in real time the paradigm shift in how people communicate, and then really what's important to people in terms of their emotional and mental well-being.
Yeah.
Simultaneously in my life, I fell in love with my now husband, Jason Wilson. He is a chef and a restaurateur, has been in the business also for like 20, 25 years, more probably. And I watched his industry, the restaurant industry, really get annihilated in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Obviously, people couldn't go to restaurants anymore. And so many businesses, closed, or we at the restaurant that we own together, the Lake House, went on hiatus. And so sort of watch that demise. And then we had the opportunity to build it back up and have people come back to work again and people come out to eat again. And what we discovered, like the rest of the world, was everybody was traumatized. We had traumatized guests and a traumatized workforce. And that really meant we couldn't find people to come back to work. We couldn't find people. I was
shocked you guys actually opened back up again. I thought for sure that was not going to be a thing.
Yeah. And so many people, so many amazing restaurants were not able to open up again.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't fair. It was just a really, really hard thing to watch, that decimation of an industry happen in the pandemic. But so I was getting this mental health counseling degree and saw that there was a mental health crisis in the restaurant industry. There really was one brewing before the pandemic, and the pandemic really just exacerbated all the things that were difficult about it. I think that the Food Network and certain shows, would highlight this Gordon Ramsay, bombastic chef mentality, and even sadly the Anthony Bourdain story of, what he went through, and ultimately, people losing their lives to suicide in this industry. It was sort of fodder for entertainment in a really unfortunate way.
Right.
But it's also a very real crisis, and the pandemic led to a whole bunch of people choosing not to come back to work in the restaurants. We all prioritized our time and said, I don't want to do that for a living. My mental health is important to me. So I saw there to be a giant opportunity to bring mental health and wellness services to the restaurant industry. And that's what I did. I paused getting my degree. I went through some certifications to get some professional coaching certifications and some telehealth certifications and addiction and trauma, and opened up a consulting practice to help restaurants learn how to take care of their people.
That's incredible. So restaurants will come to you and hire you, and then you will go in and hold different seminars, or is it one-on-one counseling? Like, what exactly happens?
So we offer a suite of services, everything from one-on-one individual, like leadership and wellness coaching for management of restaurants, to we run workshops on things like substance abuse or unconscious bias or diversity training, conflict resolution for staff. We consult to have restaurants open up safe spaces, like safe psychological spaces for staff. So at the Lake House, my restaurant, we call that the wellness room. Certain other restaurants have like an area or somewhere to go when staff need to kind of get off the floor and decompress for a second.
Wow.
There used to be this old adage of go cry in the walk-in, like it gets like stressful at work. And so you go stand in the freezer. And honestly, I kind of love that because you get hot literally. So it's sort of nice to stand in a freezer. But so we created these psychological safe environments for people to just learn how to feel their feelings while they're working, process them, talk about them, take a pause, take a breath, and then go back and provide services in a more balanced and healthy way.
That's amazing. I mean, my first job was I worked at Il Fornaio in San Francisco.
Yes.
And I was going to be, my uncle through marriage was the starter of Il Fornaio in San Francisco.
No
so he was very nice to give me a job, and I was going to be in their restaurant management program. That was kind of the plan post-college. For 2 seconds, I had several plans. And I served breakfast and lunch every day with Bartholo. He and we ran that place. It was right at Levi Plaza, so it was super busy, all these business people coming in for breakfast. And we worked 5 days a week. It was like actually the best, like if you're going to work in a restaurant. I can't believe that they even had that for us, because I just went every day at 5:30 and then I was done at noon every single day, or 1 after lunch too. But I worked every day that time. But some crazy stuff happens there. And here I am, like pretty young, and just like my first job, like, my first job, like where I'm really like committing all my time to it. And people do get like seriously huffy, and everyone is there for a certain reason. I remember once, like, I didn't get a tip. This guy did not tip me. And I remember now, if I had you, I could have like just gone in the wellness room for a minute. But instead I was like 22 and I was like, why didn't you tip me? I was so upset, right? You can't ask a guest why they didn't tip you. My service probably sucked, but I didn't know how to handle that. And, it left me in kind of in a way for a day or so. Like I just couldn't believe it. And that's obviously not a huge mental health crisis, but in the moment, just like having someone there who could have been able to like, help me through that. Somebody who was trained to be like, hey, Rachel, you probably did a terrible job. That's why you didn't get tipped.
Yeah, or, that is such a natural phenomenon. I mean, imagine, first of all, according to the Department of Labor and Industries, 1 in 2 Americans' first jobs was in a restaurant.
Right.
So that's half of our workforce who is starting out their careers in this kind of environment. So it's a really amazing statistic. It's a great opportunity for us to say, hey, let's pay attention to this industry so that we set people off on the healthiest foot forward.
Right, exactly.
But, in your case, if all of us now in your job, if you had a client in your job stand up and give you a scorecard with every interaction, you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's this like this tipping concept is essentially, it's a wonderful thing to have, but it also is for us emotionally, it's validation. Did I do a good job? Right.
It's really like hard on your ego, which by the way, I believe Lake House now puts a 20% service charge on the bill, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that for a minute, just to switch over for 1 second, because I feel like a lot of my listeners would be very interested, because some people don't understand this, and I have had numerous conversations with my girlfriends about it. Some girls that I hang out with are like, we don't like that. Yeah, I understand both sides. And honestly, the industry is still going through what I think is sort of an experimentation with this concept. But the Lake House and a lot of other restaurants in the Seattle area, at least, are adding an automatic 20% service charge so that tipping is not expected. A lot of people ask, like, what should I do? I feel rude if I don't leave an additional tip. It is important that the consumer knows there is no, at least for the Lake House, I guess I can only speak for our establishment, but I do believe this is the norm, that when you're adding that kind of service charge, what you're saying to your guest is, we're taking care of our staff. That goes, in our case, 100% of that goes to our staff and to our services for our staff. So there is no expectation that somebody would have to pay anything additional. They can if they want to, but we really try to make it clear to guests that they don't need to avoid that awkward thing. Right. And I think it's great. And P.S., if you haven't been to the Lake House yet, let me just say the service is impeccable. I actually was there the other night for a cocktail, and I saw Jacob. And he came up to
yay.
me. He helped us a couple of weeks ago when we were in for a friend's birthday. But he came up to me and gave me a hug. And, how are you? Yeah. I mean, I did call him Jesse. And then I was like, you're not Jesse. Hold on a minute. And he was so cute. He's like, it's Jacob. But the service is impeccable. And you definitely, I never feel bad when the bill comes and there's 20% on it. And I think some of that just comes with understanding, especially I will never forget, my sister was her first job was a barista. And my dad once said, I just shove as much money as I can in that tip jar because I just think about Sarah being a barista. And that just stuck with me. I just always remember it's such a hard job. Some people don't know, but dealing with all different kinds of people, they're making all kinds of demands on you. Some people are not very nice. Other people are wonderful. You just don't know what you're going to get when you walk up to that table. You don't know what's going on with them. Maybe they're in the middle of breaking up. Maybe they're celebrating something. You don't know. So I think 20% is the least you can do.
Well, you're bringing up so many important issues. And I think that the conversation is so relevant for anybody who goes out to restaurants or works in restaurants, which is pretty much most people if they're privileged enough to do that, right?
And it is a privilege to get to go out to a nice meal where somebody else is preparing you wonderful food. I mean, it is a privilege, and it's also one of life's great experiences.
Yeah, and it's an utterly human experience. We used to say that good dishes come from great ingredients. And I think that now we're realizing that it really first comes from the people. It's the people who select the ingredients, who choose to purchase food from different farmers, who choose to behave the way they're behaving in the kitchen, who come up with the inspiration. Culinary arts, it is an art. And it is absolutely true. Chefs have their own style. Are you making bold, hot food? Are you making, vegetarian dishes, or is it simplicity on the plate, or is it abundance, or whatever? It's a statement of what's going on, and that's some of the wonderful things about food. Service is very much like that. You mentioned Jacob. He is a doll. I mean, just imagining Jacob, and frankly, everybody who works with us, it's you feel a sense of connection when you think about these people, because they're looking you in the eye, they're feeling a certain way. A wellness program for restaurants is not something that guarantees people are happy or that they love their job, or even frankly that the restaurant is functioning correctly. It's really about be utterly present and aware and accountable to your emotions when you're showing up.
Yeah.
That if it's a hard day, learn how to say it's a hard day. Learn how to communicate in a way that doesn't bash people or abuse people or cut people down emotionally.
Right.
I mean, just like the sake with your tip. I mean, if when you were in your first job and you didn't get your tip, if you would come to a wellness director, if you had that at your work, you could be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they didn't tip me. And I would prompt you to say things like, tell me what those feelings are. Right. And you may say rejected, disappointed, embarrassed.
Hurt, was definitely part of it.
Unmotivated, angry, right? And the only thing to say back to that is, that makes perfect sense. Of course you feel that way.
Well, just that validation, it would have been great,
And
that wasn't a thing in 1994 or whatever,
It's a call to the restaurant to say, look, if people choose to work in this industry, the restaurant has a responsibility to show up for their people.
Right.
It's really as simple as that.
I think it's fantastic that you even you're getting the opportunity to do that. I haven't really heard about any other programs like this, so I think it's fantastic. And are people calling you to have you come and consult just in the Seattle area or other places too?
So I sit on a national coalition of mental health providers for restaurants. There are only about 10 of us, I think. So there are not a lot of people in the country right now that are doing this, although more and more people are popping up, and movies like The Bear, or shows like The Bear, movies like The Menu and Boiling
We're getting
Point.
to that movie in a minute.
So that really calls a lot of attention to, but I am not aware of a peer in my position in our Seattle area doing this, but I am positive that this shift has happened and is happening. And I do get a lot of calls from chefs, from restaurateurs, even from servers, catering companies, and
Really?
frankly, people outside of restaurants who just want to learn how to build a more connected work culture.
That's
so
great.
it's amazing. It's such an honor to be able to do this kind of work. It's very meaningful work for me.
I want to ask you a little bit about just mental health in the workplace in general. And I'm not just talking about like, okay, I'm good or whatever. I think that the stigma sometimes is that, there's some addiction issues and some, there's obviously, some restaurants I go to, I see the bartenders throwing a couple back behind the bar a lot.
Yeah.
And so I assume that that's a very big part of the culture, drugs and alcohol. Not that the culture is happening in your restaurant, but that some of the servers may be struggling with addiction. Is that a thing?
So substance use disorder is a really significant issue in the service industry, and it is in many other industries as well. I think that what's interesting about restaurants is that the public is sitting there watching, right? It's not like if you go to like a software company, it's not like a whole bunch of people are standing outside the window looking in and seeing like who's getting drunk after work or during work or whatever. So substance use is absolutely an issue. The fast pace and the emotional highs and lows of restaurant work really kind of begs for this desire to escape. There is this sense of like, we're putting on a show every night and there's all this tension. And once you turn the lights off and the last guest has left, you do want to relax. You do want to celebrate. You want to decompress. You want to unwind, do something with this swell of energy that has come up. And so addiction really is the disease of escape. It is the disease of feel better fast. Many of us, whether it's drugs and alcohol or shopping or relationships or your phone or TikTok, right? It's this, I want an immediate thing to take my mind away from this discomfort that I feel.
Right.
So what we do or at least my philosophy in a wellness program is to address the issue before you get to that place where, I need to feel better fast. It's how do we manage the swell of emotional energy that's happening before, during, and after service. So an example would be that before we do service, we have a pre-shift lineup where a lot of restaurants would say, okay, the specials tonight are going to be this and that. We have a party of this, we have a party of that. We also conclude our pre-shifts with an emotional check-in. So we all go around and say 3 words. How are you feeling right now? So you say, I'm nervous, I'm excited, I'm tired. And everybody goes around and says their 3 words. And what we're doing is we're asking ourselves to be accountable to what we're bringing into that service right there. We're hearing each other. So we're actively listening and hearing what each other is. We're literally taking the temperature of our team, looking each other in the eye. Maybe somebody says, I'm sad, I'm tired, I'm sore, or whatever. Like maybe somebody had a loss or something's going on. So we know that person's section, they may need a little extra support, for instance.
Okay.
And we understand that way. If somebody without that emotional check-in, we would be like, why is so-and-so being such a jerk tonight?
Right, exactly.
Right? And then
the
finger pointing happens and all that. So it is truly, literally connection. And that's all it is. Again, it's good. It's fine to be not okay. It's just that we say it and we own it. And what happens there is that swell of energy. It's like the team is moving together better. Yeah. So by the end of the night, we now have this conversation starter. Like, so you started off being this way. How are you now? Right? Or how did it go tonight with this or that? And instead of reaching for a substance and a numbing and an escape, we are more inclined to use our tool of language. Now, does that mean that nobody has a substance use issue in our restaurant? Probably not. I don't go around diagnosing people or whatever. Right. But I will say that quite a few people have taken the active choice to explore a sober lifestyle through learning some of the tools that we do share in our wellness program. And honestly, that's a big one for myself personally. Like if we can help somebody veer off of a direction that
that's
would otherwise,
huge win right
it's
there.
a big
I mean,
win.
it must be totally gratifying to see that.
And for people to go home and actually have learned some emotional tools, like how to talk to your kids, maybe how to do. Some people tell me they do emotional check-ins now with their families at the dinner table. That's amazing. Now we have this language, this emotional literacy that we've taught people, which is huge. And honestly, the guests, they love to ask about it. We love to tell them about it. You know, there is this hum of interest and less stigma around emotional well-being, more so than ever. And it's so exciting and powerful to be part of this movement.
Yeah.
You know, I know it sounds a little pie in the sky, but it really is. It's really genuine.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted you to come on and talk about it is because people just don't know, you know, like we all just go to eat and we're like, oh, good dinner. But there's so many more layers to it, which brings me to that frickin' movie, The Menu. So I don't know who of you have seen it yet, but Deborah and I have both seen it. It's in theaters right now. Just came out last week, and I could not wait to see it, thinking it was going to be this. I don't know what I thought, but holy mamma mia. Yes. I mean, that movie was intense and disturbing. I took my 80-year-old father to see it, and about a quarter way in, he looks at me and goes, I don't know if I like this movie.
Yes,
like,
I feel like I know
so
exactly
freaked
when he
out. And then afterwards,
that.
We went to lunch, and he was just like, I mean, he was like so freaked out. Yeah. So without giving too much of the movie away, because everybody should go see it. It just, like you and I were talking about yesterday, and I'm sure your words would be better. So you should you tell a little bit about what the premise is, and then I'll add in my oohs and ahs.
Well, yeah. So I will start by saying, you know, there's amazing acting in it. It's a very engaging film. It is uncomfortable. It is disturbing, and it is not appropriate for certain younger viewers, especially.
Do not take your children to see this movie.
Yeah. But it's very eye-opening, and it's very the satire is amazing. It's very funny for a lot of people, and myself included.
I thought it was very funny, but it was also the absurdity of it.
Right.
Is scary.
Right. So it's a movie about this high-end restaurant for just 12 or so guests or whatever, where they spend an arm and a leg to have this multi-course amazing chef's tasting menu. And so it's the story about this one group that goes and has dinner there. And it's really poking fun at the different kinds of people that go out to restaurants. So there's the foodie, the person who's just like the self-appointed food critic of the world, and like who loves to take food pictures.
Oh
and
my
talk
God.
about food.
That was the best, by the way.
That person is the best. There's the food writer, the food critic for the newspaper, who is filled with all of these like big words and all of these ways of describing things, which, you know, a lot of us, those food critics are very influential and amazing, and they hold a lot of power, and sometimes it's a little bit inappropriate amounts of power. Right. A lot of people would say. There's the investor in a restaurant. There's the group that, the group of, in this case, young guys who are like recently coming into some big money, and the way that they act, and, you know, or the washed up, celebrity, you know, there's all these personalities that come in.
And the married couple. The older couple,
the regulars.
Oh, the regulars. Yes,
who always come there and follow the chef.
Such an eclectic group of people. And, you know, they're all their comments. They're each sitting at their own table, and they're all making these little comments. Like the foodie is like eating, and he's like dying. Like he's so into this whatever oyster or whatever he was eating. Right. But the thing that was so scary about it was, of course, at each course, the chef comes out and claps his hands really loud, and everybody kind of like jumps up, and then the staff, like, do you have your staff yell yes chef at Chef Jason every time he talks?
That's such an interesting one, right? So you're referring to the brigade style of running a kitchen. It's very militant, and it's very orderly, and there is something absolutely to be said for how important it is to have that kind of order and structure and methodology to a kitchen. And yes, yes, chef, or traditionally oui chef, OUI, the French oui chef is what people do. And Jason and I were lucky enough to eat at a beautiful restaurant called 11 Madison Park in Manhattan a few weeks ago.
I saw your post. Yes, that looked amazing.
We watched them doing that, and that was amazing. And it's interesting, at the lake house, we say that we have a we culture, but it's WE. It's kind of a play on words. But basically that there is a sense of order and connection, but it's much more of a team effort. Yeah. But yes, the menu absolutely pokes fun at that brigade style militant way, and that shouting and that structure. It is effective in terms of running a kitchen. It used to be. And it also is, let's call it soul crushing. Yeah. It is, inappropriate and demoralizing.
Very demoralizing. I couldn't believe that's the part I think that was so disturbing.
Right.
About
so we directly combat that, but that was a big one. I went and saw it with my husband, the chef, we could really relate. I know a lot of people in our restaurant went, a lot of the cooks and the line cooks and some of the hosts, like a few people all went together, and they just couldn't stop laughing at so many of these, especially like
I bet.
The foodie who assumes that they can cook better than the chef, right? So, and maybe they can, but remember, food is subjective.
Well, totally. Yeah. I mean,
so it's like, this is the best or this is the worst. I mean, there is a technicality to the way that food is done, but the self-appointed expert,
the broken emulsion. So they bring her the bowl of broken emulsion.
Yes. I know. Yeah. It's an interesting film.
It is. So without giving any more than that away, the culture is so interesting. So if you are watching or listening, please definitely catch it in the theater. It's definitely worth it. And I saw it at like 11 in the morning. So I was like, oh my God. Afterwards, I was like, I need a drink.
Yeah.
My dad was
not for the faint of heart. Yeah.
No, but go see it. It's not scary. It's just disturbing, but it's also highly entertaining. And the acting is amazing. Just completely enjoyed it. But I don't think it's like that at the lake house.
It is not like that at the lake house. But again, I do want to make the point, because this sometimes comes up. It's not that the lake house is some kind of utopia, or any restaurant that I've ever worked with. It's not that everyone is happy. That's such a important thing to bring up, that a wellness program does not mean that nobody makes mistakes, or that nobody has a bad day, or that nobody does something wrong or hurts someone else's feelings or whatever. It's just that we have a forum to process that, communicate together, recover. Mm-hmm. We always talk about we rise and fall together. We actively teach people like assertion scripts and conflict resolution tools so that we can get through the realities of working in this industry. So I did want to make that point, that it's not
that's a really good point to make. Yeah. I mean,
we're not the Pied Piper of like, this is the
like
rainbows place on earth.
And unicorns at the lake house.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. We all make mistakes. It's about teaching people that they're safe to take accountability and take responsibility for their mistakes, that, saying you're sorry or doing better and showing up in a different way is how we grow.
Yeah.
So we have to make mistakes. We have to let each other know when we've ruffled feathers or hurt each other's feelings or made bigger mistakes. I mean, that's part of the territory. It is not for the faint of heart. Working in restaurants is not for the faint of heart.
Right. It's like, we need that in real estate.
I think everybody needs it, right? We need
instead
it
of all the passive aggressive, because I'm in the service industry too, right? It's a different client, but I spend a lot of time entertaining my clients in restaurants like the Lake House and other great restaurants in Bellevue and Seattle, and it is an important part of my culture of what I do. It's a great breaking bread with your clients is a great opportunity to get to talk to them. But, that whole experience is what I'm taking them for. Like, I want them to feel that they're taken care of, not only by me, but by like, bringing them to your restaurant or whatever. Like it's an extension, right, of the kind of service that I want to provide to my clients.
Absolutely.
So it is definitely like multi-tiered. Any service industry, no matter if you're selling real estate, and if you're selling something, if it's food on a plate, if it's a house, if it's a mortgage, we're all in the service industry. So
we are. There is such an amazing book now called Unreasonable Hospitality. I definitely suggest it to anybody who's interested in this topic. It just came out. It's amazing. It's by Will Guidara. It is all about what is service, what is gracious service, what is genuine, authentic service. How do we go out of our way in a meaningful way to see and honor each other through service? It's really, really impactful. It would be a great holiday gift.
Okay.
We
will make sure and post it with when this comes out with the video.
And I have no affiliation with it. I want to make that very clear. But
just a good recommendation.
It's a good recommendation. But what you're saying is it's so apt. It's like you're going, we're all interconnected.
Yes.
Right?
Completely. Yeah.
So true.
I know. One more question and then I'll let you get back to it. It's the holidays. Just give us a little love of anything special that's going on at the lake house. I want to say the lake house has become one of my favorites as of late because of the lunch that we had there. It's just, but it's not just the food. You sent me home with like olives and pickles and granola and all this stuff. I mean, like you have some stuff going on there too. I mean, we try
to have a little extra something for everybody. We try to do from start to finish. We try to put our best foot forward, show people that we're listening, that we're paying attention, and that we care. Through the holidays, we're offering Christmas. We have a Christmas Eve dinner and a Christmas Day dinner, a 4-course chef's tasting menu. So people can make reservations at thelakehousebellevue.com for that. Okay. And we're also offering, Jason is cooking a chef's tasting menu for New Year's Eve. It's an 8-course menu.
Oh God.
It is lovely. We are just anybody who would choose to spend their holidays or any day with us. Time is so precious to all of us that
Absolutely.
we just want to honor that somebody has chosen to share that time with us. So yeah, we would love to see
I might be there on New Year's Eve.
Oh, good.
I'm usually by myself, so I might be sitting with you and Chef. Well, Chef will be in the kitchen, but I might join you.
Perfect.
That's great. Well, I just want to thank you so much. And I will obviously post the link to your website.
Thank you.
And, obviously please follow the Lake House as well on Insta. And then do you have an Insta for the Balance Plate?
Yeah, it's at dfwconsulting.com.
Okay,
Consulting.
perfect.
Yeah, so you can post that too.
I'll definitely post it. I think I follow you, so I should have known that. But it's just been so eye-opening. I mean, we could go on and on and on, but people will probably get a little bored of us after a while. So, we may do part 2. I know we're going to repost our amazing lunch video that we did.
Oh, good.
So we'll kind of give everybody a little teaser because it was so fun. So we'll repost that on our Instagram and some little snippets of deliciousness from that, including when I got to talk to Jason. And I was like, it's funny because chefs do become celebrities a little bit, right? Like we saw in this movie a little bit, or like Anthony Bourdain, and like they come out to your table and you're like, oh, the chef came out to talk to me.
That's so sweet.
It's nice. I mean, it just makes you feel the love, and that's the thing. Like, yes, he's just another guy that is a very good chef. But like to me, you just made me a beautiful dinner. So to me, you're like a little bit of a celebrity because you fed me and you made me happy,
That means everything. I mean, the goal is to make you feel special, and because you are, it's like it's a very genuine thing that we are truly so grateful to you and the rest of our friends and guests who come into our restaurant. So everybody,
you guys are in the right business because you definitely have it down, and it was such a pleasure to talk to you today and every day.
Thank you.
And
you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, it was my pleasure. And if it is happening in real time, we are going to talk about it here on Real Time with Rachael. See you guys.